but it was a great evening, and we raised a lot of money. I'll let Reverend Kurt tell us later. So, anyway, welcome to Unity on the North Shore Sunday service. If you're joining us virtually on Zoom or watching us later on social media, we are glad you're here. And I'm your worship assistant, Suzanne Lam. And our speaker today is Reverend Kurt Condra. And the chaplain is Priscilla Florence. And our pianist is Danny Bauer, and soloist is Carl Younguston. Thank you. So if we would gather our thoughts, getting ready for our opening prayer this morning. And if you would like, you can close your eyes and take several deep breaths to get ready for our service to meet with our spirit. Holy Presence, we know that in God, we can never be separate from love, from truth, from infinite intelligence and the source of all good. We're gathered here in this sacred time to open our hearts and mind to the one power and the one presence. We gratefully receive the energies of divine light and love pouring in and through us. And we affirm that we are here this morning for a divine purpose. We trust that that purpose is now being fulfilled, for we know we are now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. So now Cal will lead us with Danny on the opening song.
I wonder what might happen if all the beings in all the worlds were free from suffering without desire and burst into unstoppable joy. I wonder what might happen if all the stars in all the skies were strung together with a common thread and shone together in common light, the light of love. That I am love, unstoppable love. I am that I am light, unbreakable light. I am that I am joy, unstoppable joy. I am that I am joy, unstoppable joy. Unstoppable joy, joy. I wonder what might happen if all the eyes began to see the mystery of love unfolding in the perfection of you and me. I wonder what one voice, the voice of love. I am that I am, that I am love. Unstoppable love. I am that I am, that I am light. Unfadable light. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. 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 Joy, 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 unstoppable joy.
Well, thank you, Cal and Danny, to put us in a mood of joy. Thank you so much. Welcome again to Unity on the North Shore. And Unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe that there is truth and beauty in every spiritual tradition, and we honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on your journey of faith, you're always welcome here. So our purpose at Unity on the North Shore is to create a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and live their fullest life. If this is your first Sunday with us, we extend a loving welcome. And for those of you that keep coming back to us, we love you as well. Thank you so very much to join our community. And many of us, when we first found out about Unity on the North Shore, is surprised to learn that there is a community that thought and believed the same things that we do. We felt like coming home. And I felt that way when I came in 1997. And I'm still here. So still keep coming back. We hope you will do the same. So we hope your experience this morning will bring you to us again and again. So now I will invite everyone to stand now and join us in singing our group song.
So we need you to dig in with us on this one a little bit. This is going to be fun. Here we go. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. He was a good friend of mine. I never understood a single word he said, but I helped him drink his wine. And he always had somebody find a wine, singing joy to the world, to all the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me. If I were king of the world, I'd tell you what I'd do. I'd throw away the cars and the bars and the wars and make sweet love to you. Singing joy to the world, to all the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me. Joy to the world. Come on, you got it. To all the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me. Take it, Danny. Here we go. One more time. Joy to the world, to all the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me. One last time. Joy to the world, to all the boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. Joy to you and me. Joy to you and me. Joy to you and me.
Thank you so much for the wonderful music. I guess you know the theme of today, unstoppable joy and joy to the world. What are you going to do next? I am Priscilla Florence, and I'm your chaplain for today. I'd like to welcome you to pray with me in the back, should you wish to. And if you are online, feel free to put your prayer requests on the line, and someone will respond to you. So good morning. Our theme of the daily word today is faith. Faith heals, prospers, blesses, and sustains me, and brings me joy. Our verse comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. For we walk by faith, not by sight. I love that. Sometimes I wish I had a way of looking into the future and knowing what to expect. But even though I cannot know how the future might unfold, I can still be prepared for it through the power of my faith. Having faith means I have unwavering fidelity to spiritual truth. My faith is my anchor, keeping me steady during shifting worldly circumstances and focused not on the things of the world, but on the power of the Spirit. My faith keeps me steadfast in the midst of uncertainty, inventive when met with stagnation, and adaptable when faced with changing circumstances. I turn my attention to God and feel my soul illumined by my belief that everything is working for good. I align with this truth and go forth, blessed by my faith. And I would add, and my joy. So let us faithfully turn our attention to Spirit. And if you wish, close your eyes and pray. Pray for the world. Let's begin with peace and end with peace as we sing the peace song. Let us push peace into this universe. And now, if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, pray for peace for yourself and for your loved ones, animals and humans. Thank you, dear God. Thank you for this moment of silence, of prayer, of your listening. Thank you. Amen.
We're gonna take it easy for a while. If you know this one, feel free to sing. When it's not always raining, there'll be days like this. When there's no one complaining, there'll be days like this. When everything falls into place, like the flick of a switch. When my mama told me there'll be days like this. When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there'll be days like this. When you don't get betrayed by that old Judas kiss. Oh, my mama told me there'll be days like this. When you don't need an answer, there'll be days like this. When you don't meet a chancer, there'll be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle just seem to fit, then I'll remember there'll be days like this. When everyone is up front and they're not playing tricks. When you don't have no freeloaders trying to get their kicks. When it's nobody's business how you want to live. I just have to remember there'll be days like this. When no one steps on my dreams, there'll be days like this. When people understand what I mean, there'll be days like this. When you ring out the changes of how life really is. Well, my mama told me there'll be days like this. Well, my mama told me there'll be days like this. If you know the first verse. When it's not always raining, there'll be days like this. When there's no one complaining. When everything falls into place like the flick of a switch. Well, my mama told me days like this. Ooh, my mama told me days like this. Ooh, my mama told me there'll be days like this.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Cal. Oh my God, we really got going strong this morning, didn't we? Now I get to try and keep that up. Actually, the days like this song, I had asked them to sing because I think it's really instructive for what we're aiming for today. Van Morrison wrote it really as sort of a flip. You know that old saying like, oh man, it's just another one of those days, you know, where everything's going wrong. And he wrote that song specifically to flip that around, to start thinking about what would it be like if everything went perfectly on days like this. So that's really kind of a beautiful, I think, intention to hold as we start to dig into the foundational unity teaching about the law of mind action. Charles Fillmore, for the last few weeks, we've been looking at some of the original foundational teachings of unity. And one of the big ones, in fact, our third principle is based on it. And of the 5 principles that we often talk about, those weren't written by the Fillmores. They were sort of a synthesis that were developed by Charles and Myrtle's granddaughter 50 years later. So Charles had a lot of different language around what that exactly looked like. And some of that language really involved this idea of law, spiritual law, that everything in the universe happens according to this divine law, these principles that are unchanging, that are true no matter what, And that you keep in mind that he was writing around the early 20th century. And so that was in the days when sort of mechanical law was really big, right? We knew that the body worked in pieces, but we didn't really have an understanding of the depth of the interconnectedness of it. So, doctors would cut things off or take things out, and then we'd have to sort of figure out how that all healed and but over the years we have become much more sort of informed and educated and understanding about how it is that there's a more synergistic, more holistic approach, and that it's all related and all connected, which in some ways actually feeds into Charles' basic premise anyway. But this notion, he wrote a lot about law, spiritual law, and associate them very often with the physical laws of the universe. This is what he wrote about law, the all-providing law. That God is the all-providing law. He is the spiritual substance out of which is made everything the race needs. The Father who supplies his children bountifully out of his own abundance. God is mind. Man, the offspring of God, is mind. To know the law of God, man must adjust his mind to God-mind. The first step in applying this law is recognition of it as truth. Unless God is known as source of all supply, men look to the material world for support. This violates the law and breaks the connection with the one source of all good. So this notion, he talks about it a lot in terms of the law of mind action, right? That what we hold in mind actually is part of how we use the energies and the substance, divine substance of the universe, to create our experiences, to create what happens in the world. And he had a lot of ways of talking about it. In fact, there are 3 pages in this little glossary of different forms of law that he would look into: divine law, evolutionary law, natural law, law of attraction, law of giving and receiving, law of thought purification, law of transaction. It goes on and on for 2 more pages. So lots of ways in which Charles was really seeking to lead us into a greater understanding of how it is possible and why it is that everything that happens in our lives, and he means that without qualification, everything that happens in our lives happens by law. Nothing happens by chance. That's his perspective. And that's taken a lot for me to sort of live into, that nothing really I can really control, or control maybe isn't the right word, but I can certainly shape and influence and create every experience that happens in my life experience. And in Charles' view, that's absolutely true, that by spiritual law, this law of mind action, this law of abundance, this law of giving and receiving, Jesus talked about it in terms of the law of giving and receiving. Jesus talked about it in terms of treat your neighbor as yourself. That sort of what you put out comes back to you is basically the dynamic that we're talking about. So it follows that if we want to create lives that are grounded in abundance and really arise out of the wholeness of the universe and the perfection of the universe, then we need to be really conscious of how we're using this spiritual law. Because here's the thing, spiritual law, just like physical laws, can be used for good purposes or for ill purposes. An example I've heard is that the law of gravity sort of in the physical universe, right? We can use the law of gravity to climb a ladder and wash windows or fix the roof. And the same law of gravity we can use to pick up rocks and smash windows, right? There's no judgment by the law of gravity about how that's used. And the same is true for spiritual law, right? The thoughts that we hold are going to reproduce themselves, are going to sort of reflect out, ripple out, and create an experience depending on the character of the thought. It doesn't matter if the thought is wonderful and loving and positive and grounded in peace, or if the thought is arising out of anger and frustration and a sense of separation or isolation or fear. That energy is going to ripple out, and the appearance of that, the reflection of that we'll experience back, is going to be at the same vibrational frequency that we put out, right? Does that make sense? So it becomes really important that we learn to manage this incredible power, this creative power, this power that is of God, that's innate in our own experience and our own divinity. It's important that we learn to manage that well. And Ellen Davenport, who wrote 5 Principles, and this in her 3rd chapter she talks about this, the law of mind action. She says we're basically like cavemen who have just discovered fire. Like we get that it's warm, but we haven't really figured out how to put that to really effective use in ways that that could really transform not only our lives, but the experience on the planet. We've made progress, certainly, but if we were really able to master this law of this creative power that we share under this law of divine mind, then wars would dissipate. We would come out of a sense of love. We would understand that everything that we do is connected and affects and impacts everything else on the planet, and would come from a space of really recognizing that there certainly is an abundance of everything needed to create a joyful experience for everyone on the planet. And not only everyone, but every sentient being, and that we would have a tremendous respect and understanding for how the well-being of the planet is actually caring for ourselves. If we were able to master this law of mind action, we would basically be living in sort of an idyllic heaven on earth. We're a long way from that right now. But that's not to say that we haven't made progress. So the question then becomes, how do we begin to apply this wisdom? Certainly to be very watchful of the ideas that we're holding, you know. It's so easy to sort of slip into some of the more prevailing thought patterns, prevailing dynamics that surround us. And you know who's really gotten good at this? Or I don't know if it's a who, but an entity that has really gotten exceptional at like building on an initial thought and taking it to the and reiterating it and taking it and repeating it back. It's influencers on the internet and internet marketers, right? You put out a thought on the internet and it gets reflected back in your feed immediately. I don't know, just in the last week or so, I clicked on an ad that featured a really attractive man. Just, you know, one click. And very quickly, my session and this whole week has devolved into the most skimpy underwear that I could never imagine wearing or buying, right? But the thought pattern that I put out got multiplied and intensified to a degree that just is unstoppable. Yeah, Danny, thank you. Same thing, obviously with women probably, but yeah, so it works both ways, to really be conscious and mindful about where we're investing our thought energy. And I mean, that's kind of a silly example, but I also think it's a great practice. You know, before you click on anything in your internet feed, just think about where that might lead. And if that's something that you want replicated, do you want to see that in your face over and over and over again? Or are you really giving your attention and your energy to information streams that are going to feed you, that are ultimately more aligned with the desire that you have for the kind of life you want to lead? That's just one small little practice there. Start to be really mindful about what you're supporting in terms of your informational intake, either on, and certainly on the internet. That's where it's sort of most impactful. But the same thing is true with your TV intake, with your media intake, wherever you're getting your media. So just be really mindful. It's not that we're wanting to bury our heads in the sand and not know what's going on in the world, but we also don't want to immerse ourselves in this sort of mass consciousness energy that really is hurtling in the other direction from the kind of divine understanding that we know we have, the capacity we have to create even greater in the world. We're also finding that, so thoughts are one thing, right? And that's really, I think, what Charles was most focused on. Like, if you figure out the thought, because we can't really, what we're finding is that the emotions and the feelings that we bring to our experience are every bit as powerful in terms of attracting greater experience as the thoughts that we're holding. So even though I think, and I'm going to look at Anne here, right? Thoughts sort of precede feelings. We have to have the thought that it's a scary snake chasing us and might, you know, oh, we recognize a snake, and then the fear rises up, right? And then so thoughts sort of precede. But what we're finding is that the real energy in that is really in the emotional impact of it, right? The universe doesn't need words to create, because the universe is really about energy. And so the energetic quality that we bring to our experiences is every bit probably even more important in terms of being able to sort of tap into this power we have to create our experience. So to be able to manage that energy flow is huge. To manage the emotional experiences that we navigate is huge. And that's not to say that we can just shut down emotions that are uncomfortable or unpleasant, but we certainly don't want to be dwelling in them. I've been, as part of my, I don't know if it's mindful, because I'm now like into 6 seasons of watching over and over the episodes, so I'm not sure how mindful that is, but the initial choice was one that I found very inspiring. I've been watching The West Wing. It's a political drama that was on, 10 years ago. And so much of the issues that are being uncovered are very similar to what we're still dealing with these days. And I found it just very instructive and inspiring to sort of watch how it gets navigated from a political perspective that admittedly is fictional and kind of idealized, but really comes from a place, I think, that's much more resonant with my own feelings about how the world ought to work. And one of the episodes that I watched this week featured a Hispanic candidate who's running for president. Sort of first one in the country, or at least in the history that they're describing in West Wing, in a long time. And in the midst of it, his campaign is just picking up and just gaining speed, right? But he still needs to win over the black vote. And right sort of at the height of that, the tensions of that, we learned that a Hispanic cop in Los Angeles has shot a black kid who was carrying a fake gun. And so, the whole country, of course, is consumed, which is not unlike many of the news stories that we have since sort of navigated. And so Matt Santos, the candidate for president, his campaign staff is looking to him like, okay, this is it. You got to fix this, or your campaign is dead. And what we see is him navigating an emotional process that I think is one that would be really instructive for us, right? He begins by being totally sort of present to what's going on for himself, right? The anger, the frustration, the just heartbreak of this loss that's happening, and the frustration that arises out of it having to be such a dynamic that has been perpetuated from the beginning of our history. Like that's weighing on him. And so his staff is coming up with all these kind of platitudes that are going to be used in his speech, and he keeps throwing them in the trash. And he finally sits down with his wife, who says, you just have to come from your heart, right? So that's for us too. That's good instruction for us. You have to say something from your heart. And at that moment, sort of all heck breaks loose, and he's able to sort of express to her the frustration that he feels. Because what was in his heart at that moment is a whole lot of anger and defeatism at being asked to be in this position of trying to solve something that was insolvable for the country, or at least feeling like that's the weight that was on him. And what he admitted to is that he was angry and frustrated, and he could not begin to understand how the officer couldn't have taken just one flash of a second before firing. He couldn't begin to understand how a black kid in a really dangerous neighborhood be running around with a plastic gun, why the parents wouldn't be hadn't taught them better, like on and on and on about the blame that got established. And sort of what he was able to come to is an understanding of like, okay, I get this. I get that I'm in this place of blame. And then sort of we see him off entering now. He's going in to address a black church on a Sunday morning who are grieving one of their own. And so he comes before this church, and we're all like, well, what has he got? We've seen, but what does he come to? And what ends up transpiring is this sort of beautiful articulation of his own process. Like, okay, having gone from wanting somebody to blame for this, wanting to be able to ascribe blame somewhere, that what he found the capacity to do instead was to reach for compassion. Compassion for those that he was blaming, compassion for those that he couldn't understand, compassion for himself, for all that he had sort of taken on, just compassion and the sort of I don't want to say hook because that sounds very disrespectful. The foothold that he found to be able to reach into that level of compassion was, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King's call to us to know that there is hope for a greater future, and to be able to then remind his audience that as much as we do not want or need any more of the blame that's going around, or the risk to children that's been happening for decades, that there has been progress and that there is hope ahead. And he ends up sort of moving to a spot where we could be present enough to the tragedy, to the pain, but also to be able to see beyond it. And that's key to the law of mind action. That's key to this idea that we want to be able to not be caught in the frustration and the pain and the suffering of the stuff that is so real in this world, but to be able to see beyond it. It's funny, it's because it's a tough thing to navigate right now. I wrote in my blog this week that it feels like we're being called to straddle between joyful times and really painful and awful times, like constantly. Like it's just this constant barrage of information. Every day there are these emotional tugs that are pulling at us from both sides. And so how is it that we begin to navigate that? This week I was, my nephew, his firstborn daughter was born a couple of weeks ago now. And the first 10 days of her life she spent in the neonatal ward, intensive care. And it was touch and go for a while, so the family was sort of really at a space of some fear, at a space of great hope, but also at a space of real kind of challenge. And so when she was released, when she was able to go home this week, we were all thrilled. There was like this great joyful kind of, she's made it through the worst of it, right? She's here, and we welcome her. So that was really present as a dynamic. And at the same time, a couple days after she got home, she had to go back, and she was fitted with these weird casts and braces so that she'll be able to walk. And she's got a really tough couple of years ahead where they're going to be changing these. And while she had been home, she had been this happy, peaceful, wonderful little infant. And now that she was home with these casts, she's just screaming and miserable. And so we're sitting with this joy and gratitude that she's sort of out of the woods in terms of being able to bring her light into this world, and also knowing that she's got a couple of really tough years ahead of her. Heavy-heartedness around that. How do we balance that? And the same is true as we look at world affairs, right? We know that there are plenty of things on the planet to be joyful for. We had, let's see, Suzanne, here's one. Suzanne mentioned that we had our gala last night, which was a beautiful gathering of some folks from Unity communities all over, and this space was just filled with a lot of light and a lot of reconnecting and just a lot of great conversation, and it was really profitable for us. We think we've cleared about $20,000 from last night, so that's one to cheer for, right? Joyful with that stuff. And then we wake up to news that, okay, Congress is probably going to have trouble passing a bill to keep the government open. So there's that hole and all the implications of that. How do we hold both of those? How do we sort of move to a space where we can begin to process our feelings in a healthy way, but also moves us into a space of being present to the possibilities that are infinite ahead, besides the ones that would be drilled into us. And I would just say that, that takes time and a whole lot of practice. And it really starts within each of us. That's the one thing that Eric Butterworth, in a couple of his essays that I was reading about this law of mind action, really emphasizes that as much as let's see, how am I going to get into this? That it's really important that we recognize our own, especially when we get into those spaces of wanting to blame or wanting to ascribe fault. It's really recognizing that even in those instances, that blame is a reflection, not just a reflection of what's going to come back to us, but a reflection of what's already within us, right? So the fear that I might be having for my niece's well-being is a reflection of the fears I have for my own health and well-being. I'm getting older, things aren't working as well. I broke my foot a few weeks ago. There are ways in which the same kind of fears that I'm now projecting on what her experience are going to be are arising out of the fears I have for myself. And so Eric's counsel is to really look within and understand and do some deep, deep work about the spaces in our own experience where we're having some difficulty or some challenge, and start to pay attention to those in a way that we can bring more healing to it, that we can bring more conscious awareness to be able to shift the thinking and as a result the feeling that we have around it. So if I'm blaming a Speaker of the House for divisiveness or for battling against, I have to look within to find out the spaces where I've got my own battles going on. I have to look within where I don't have a level of tolerance or acceptance or willingness to understand another perspective, to be able to heal that within myself in order to be a presence for that beyond sort of my own circle. Because that's an energy that ripples out. That's an energy that resonates. And as I said, it's one that takes time. You know the story of Martha and Mary? You know, Jesus goes to visit Martha and Mary in their home. This is sort of a classic story. And Martha is very busy preparing. Martha is really excited, certainly, to have Jesus in her home. And so she's out in the kitchen getting ready for the meal. And Mary, meanwhile, is sitting at Jesus' feet, just sort of enjoying his presence. And at some point you can and I know this because I've been the Martha character, right? I've been the one who's like resentful and out and I've got to do everything. I've kind of been that. We got a group right now that's meeting and most of us are firstborn and we think that might be one of the characteristics, right? That's kind of the perspective that we come to it. Like, it's all on me. When am I going to get this? And this week, I've been asked to do this is a chance for me to plug. There's a wonderful play that's being performed. It's the closing day of the play. There's a matinee performance of this. I just lost the name of the play. At Fleetwood Jourdain. It's not coming to me. Anyway, it's this amazing play, and this performance is a benefit for Evanston Pride. And I've been asked to sort of reprise a discussion afterwards, so I'm going to be asking some questions. So that's my plug. You ought to come see the show. It touches on a lot of the things we care about in terms of social justice. You'll love the show. But sort of at the last minute, they said, well, and could you do a reception? And so I'm like, yeah, we definitely want to do a reception. And as I was sort of agonizing yesterday, we've got a lot going on this weekend. We had our own gala and there's getting ready for this and the questioning, and I'm realizing I went right back to a place almost 30 years ago in my very first Unity Church where I was like the guy who handled the fellowship stuff after service. And I can remember, we were in Southern California, so it was outside. So we had to schlep a bunch of chairs outside, and we brought tents out, and there were tables we set up and food. And it got to a point where it seemed like I was the only one. I was Martha doing this reception and bringing this whole sort of victim attitude toward it. And I've worked a lot on that over these 30 years. And so when this reception came up yesterday, I was reminded that, I'm coming at that from a whole different consciousness. And guess what? We've got a team of folks who are bringing refreshments. We got some help over at the theater that are going to do the tables. I talked to someone who had brought centerpieces yesterday. We've got some of the most incredible centerpieces filled with orchids. We're going to have the most impressive little reception. And all I had to do was ask for it. There's no sort of victim, oh my God. And that sort of taken a lot of personal work on recognizing when I was falling into that kind of attitude and recognizing that there's a different way to approach it. And so this idea of really tapping into this creative power that we have really rests on an awareness that it's up to each of us as individuals to look for those places within and to be mindful of the places where we are coming from less than kind of our truest potential, our truest selves, and being willing to heal that and reach out to others as we do in a community like this, to be able to then create lives that are really grounded and based in a perspective that is more informed by the joy that we experience and the joy that we want to express than it is by the challenges that we face. Yeah. So with that, let's see if we can't move into a meditative space where we can allow for a kind of healing energy to lift us, to sustain us.
Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly.
join in with Cal.
Let me
She's singing in
be
first person, so it's
brave.
perfect for us. So once you get the rhythm and tune, just let it roll over in
See
mind.
my choices clearly.
Bring it into a personal experience.
Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly. Please let me be brave. Please let me see my choices clearly.
So as we let this affirmation sort of sink more deeply into our awareness, into our consciousness, we remember that we are created in the image and likeness of God, that we have immense creative power to shape our lives, and that we have within us a deep understanding of how we are connected to one another and to all that is. And that through the choices that we make, we can create lives that are characterized by joy, by peace, by harmony, by connection and experience. As we breathe in deeply, remember that we are divine expressions of the infinite. And it's in these quiet moments with the power of this awareness that we can tap into a capacity to begin to change that in our lives which is not of the highest. In these quiet moments, we know and trust that Spirit is moving in us and through us and as us, inspiring and guiding us to make brave choices, to make choices that are grounded in love, that will bring about a fuller expression of love in our lives, that will be felt by all those around us who are dear to us, and that will ripple and resonate out into all creation. We center ourselves in this awareness and this power, knowing that indeed we are brave. We are creative. We are expressions of the Most High, creating heaven right here on earth with each choice and every breath. So it is, and so may we let it be. Amen.
That I am love, unstoppable love. I am that I am light, unfadable light. unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy. I am that I am, that I am joy. Unstoppable joy.
Between Reverend Kurt and Cal and Danny, we definitely have to leave here filled with joy. And as always, Reverend Kurt always give us something to do when we get home, to work on ourselves, how to stay positive and how to deal with what we are surrounded with, all these negative energy. Thank you so very much. And now we have to, now is the time of the service that we share our love offerings. And there are 3 simple ways to give. You can text us to the give, and the number is 815-827-6052. Or you can send a check through the mail, like I do, and many of you do too. So just as a recurring donation from the church and from the bank, and it's very simple to do. Just use the church as like one of the vendors, and it goes out every month. And for those of you, or you can use, like I said, we did the mail. So for those of you that are in the room, and you can leave your cash or check in the bowl in the back as you leave. So now as we bless our givings and receiving, and if you are not actually giving in this exact moment, I invite you to set the intention to give. As we speak aloud our offertory blessing, with joy and gratitude, we affirm, divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. Please stand as we embrace our prosperity and sing our offertory song.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so
Thank you. You may be seated. And thank you, Cal and Danny, for leading us on all these songs. And also thank you, Livestream, for making all this possible for the Zoom Sunday service. And all your presence here with us here, bless us. So now we have our announcement. As you see, we have the kids camp, the Unity Kids Camp. Can you imagine growing up with the unity principles in your life? And we want to give that opportunity to as many kids as possible. So next Sunday, we invite you to bring your children, your grandchildren, and any other kids in your life or for our monthly kids camp program. And during the special lesson session, the kids will play, have fun, and learn unity principles. Kids ages 3 to 18 are welcome to join the fun. And the next announcement is the New Year's Eve celebration. We just finished with one gala and a successful one, and we're looking forward to another one for the New Year's Eve. This is a new event for us. It's planned this year at New Year's Eve, and we partnered with numerous local businesses and practitioners to bring you exciting evening of sacred intentions setting experiences during a high-energy, sober party. Our conscious community New Year's Eve celebration will include yoga, burning bowl, a dance party like we had last night, a drum circle, gourmet mocktails, and late-night snacks. So everyone is welcome, and bring your friends. And you can buy tickets online at unityns.org, and the ticket prices will be announced at that time after December 15. So please mark it on your calendar to come join us. So that's it. And please stand now to join me in the closing song, peace song, and the prayer for protection.
Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be the joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me.
Thank you. And now, as we read on the screen, let us say our prayer for protection. And think peace, peace, peace. I love that song. It's so meaningful now for obvious reasons. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Thank you. Peace, peace, peace.
Hello, everyone. I'm just waiting for the sound to go down.
Last
I'm sorry, Miss Dolores, I didn't hear you.
night was really fun.
Oh, yes, it was marvelous.